Major and minor injuries. When something happens on our walk, what do we do in either of those scenarios?
Okay, so let's start with minor injuries. By that we mean, somebody might stumble on the path, they might fall down and, get a cut or a scrape on their knee, on their wrists, on the palms. Those are minor injuries. So, in those instances, you're just going to help them as best you can. If you've got a first aid kit nearby, or the first aider will come and clean the wound if it needs to be. If it's a minor scrape, just get the dirt out, put some saline on, put a plaster on, put a dressing on potentially. Make sure they're okay, they're feeling okay, send them on the way. People are okay to continue with a minor injury. Another one might be they've sprained, they've stumbled and sprained. Quite common for this to happen, sprain an ankle. Usually, it hurts a bit, but you can continue on your way. You might need them you might need to bandage their ankle. If it's a more, serious sprain that's maybe causing a little bit of pain, then, you're going to try and stabilize that for them, put a bandage around it, give them a bit of support. Assess it as best you can. If it seems like it's just a minor sprain but they can walk still, they're okay to continue, and then just ask them again at each checkpoint how they're feeling, how's the sprain, do you need to stop, or are you okay to continue? Sometimes with these things, somebody might fall down. If they hit the head, it's a different matter. We treat those head injuries a bit more seriously, really. Often they're going to need medical attention where they've hit the head, and we want to stop them, assess where they're at, get somebody to come and look at them. Again, what does that present as? Is it a minor thing but they've hit the head? They might be okay to continue but sit out a section of walk, or they might not. We might have to get them to a doctor, or in the worst case a hospital. But head injuries, we treat a bit more seriously. Sprains and falls, so say it's not a minor sprain, well, if it's a major sprain, that could be indicative that they might have fractured something. They might not have, but they might have fractured something, or worst case broken, fractures and breaks. Don't always present very obviously, and we're not qualified to make that call often. But clearly if somebody's having pain walking, they should stop walking, and we need to figure out a way to get them off the track. If they can walk with some assistance to the next checkpoint, so they might have had a bad sprain, which means you can't complete the next 15k, it wouldn't be realistic to do that, and they shouldn't do that, but they could perhaps walk with some assistance to the next checkpoint, then that's okay. We can walk them to the next checkpoint, they finish the walk there. If they're in pain and they can't walk, it probably means they've fractured or they've broken something, in which case they should not go any further. We need to potentially call the emergency services. We might be able to get a vehicle to where they are, in which case we can take them to the hospital because it's not a life-threatening emergency. But if it's in a very inaccessible area where we can't get a vehicle in, then we might have to call the emergency services just to be able to get them out. So again, that will be done in consultation with other members of the team. You go and higher up the chain of command, so to speak, to kind of consult with others to work out what to do in the case that somebody can't walk out. They've got a potential suspected fracture or break.
So a common scenario is that people end up with blisters somewhere along the way, which can often be the end of day one or at some stage on the second or third day. Yeah. It could be really painful and not necessarily be a major injury, but it's a painful thing to deal with. What would we do in those cases? Yeah,
good old blisters are a feature of pretty much any long distance walk. Again, coming back to, if we can prevent them in the first place, that's always the best tactic, So while I'm leading a walk, I'll talk to people about how to prevent blisters, keep an awareness around their feet, watch out for any friction spots, etc. And, use plasters, hiking board, whatever's at hand to stop those friction spots from developing into a blister. But let's say we've got the blister, what do we do then? As you mentioned, they can be quite painful to walk with, especially over a long day. I've known people who have walked with blisters and walked long days, but it's preferable, if it's something that they're in pain with, that they don't do that, and they'll, you know, continue to the next checkpoint. It's not a life-threatening injury, so they can walk, but it might not be advisable to walk the rest of the day. So, you know, we're going to try and exit them, try and treat that blister as best we can. We might be able to treat it effectively, and they can continue the walk. They might skip a section while we do that, and we transfer them on. But typically, you know, depends on the severity of the blister and the person's kind of willingness to continue or non-willingness to continue at that point.
So really important to remember for our walk leaders and for our wellbeing crew and other volunteers who on the trail is first aid qualified and know who to go to and who's got the first aid kits. Another really important point is that we've got incident report forms, and we do need to actually take that really seriously, that if there's an injury that we do take note of the time at which the incident occurred, and that we actually make some notes about what happened and where and who was around.
That's right, yeah. It is kind of vital with any of these scenarios that we've discussed so far, that you make a mental note at the time of where you are, who's around you, who are witnesses potentially, and the time of the incident. Those three basics. If you can record it, you may have a piece of paper and pen with you, record it. It's very important because we don't know what we might be dealing with down the line, an insurance claim for instance, and those are the kind of details that they need. So time, location, witnesses, and then later a description of what actually happened to the best of your recall.